Hello people of Reddit and welcome a new video. What is your stance on human euthanasia? Don't forget subscribe. My mom died this way. She was suffering terribly from ALS. She was able to die being held by those who loved her. Right after we gave her the fatal dose, she said to me, "This is what I wanted. I'll miss you." In the face of a fatal disease, I believe everyone should have the right to decide how they want their ending to look instead of being forced to suffer a painful death. My dad is quadriphilic. He can basically only move his head a little. He is Dutch, so he has the option for euthanasia. He has discussed it with his doctors and ultimately decided he isn't ready. The thought scares my mum. He loves her too much to do it to her. And his words, "As long as I can still enjoy watching the birds and have something to do each day, I want to carry on." His disease has now become static and there is no more decline. He will get to witness my wedding this year and hopefully one day meet his first grandchild. That said, the fact he has the choice when to call it quits is an immense comfort. He won't have to suffer any longer than he chooses to, and when he is ready, he can make that call. My grandfather was just put to rest today. He had an appointment Monday at 11 o'clock. The nurse and doctor came to his home and helped him be comfortable and anxiety-free, and then the doctor brought the cocktail and injected into his fore. The program deals with body removal, and my grandmother arranged for a cremation. He lived in Canada and did it through made he had terminal cancer and was suffering, essentially lying in bed for weeks on drugs to abate the pain. Not a way to live, he decided. He had to have his main doctor, oncologist, okay it and sign off, and then met with another doctor who reviewed his case to verify that he was a candidate, and then was signed off for it by a psychologist who decided he was in his right mind to make this decision for himself. It's hard, but it was his decision and I support him. My grandmother got to handle things pragmatically and prepare, and he gets to go home as he said. He just kept saying, "I'm going home today." My mother committed assisted suicide 2 weeks ago after battling colon cancer for 6 years. First and foremost, I recognize that this was the best course of action for her. She had exhausted all treatment options and was in a mind-boggling amount of pain. She couldn't tolerate most forms of pain mitigation, so she was simply suffering. Once she decided to stop all treatment, this seemed like the natural and obvious choice for her, and it was one my sister and I respected. It is, however, important to note how deeply and truly traumatizing it was to watch my mom kill herself. I cannot escape the image of how her skin turned gray and how I watched her heart sputter and stop. Every time I close my eyes, I see her neck as I watched her pulse slow. I am well and truly struggling to deal with the process, and I think it needs to be said that it is a deeply disturbing part of the reality. That being said, it is a distinct luxury and privilege to know when, where, and how your loved one will pass. I got to talk to her about how she was feeling in the days leading up to it, and I got to hug and kiss her and say goodbye. A lot of people do not get to do that, and absolute beauty of that is not lost on me. I am deeply grateful to have sat next to her and held her hand while she drifted to sleep. Despite the tragedy and trauma of it all, I genuinely see her euthanasia as her final act of love. I support assisted suicide and believe, without hesitation, that it is the most humane and compassionate option we can offer to those who are suffering. When I was a little girl, I used to go to a very old church with mostly older folks. There was an older woman, prob in her 60s, who I really adored for some reason. She was sweet. I sat beside her and probably chatted her ears off in that annoying way children do. One Sunday she didn't show, and she didn't show for the rest of the Sundays after that. She went home after a service, wrote a note for everyone and apologized before she killed herself. Because she was suffering the late stages of cancer and it was so painful that this God-fearing woman who never missed a service felt that the only option was to kill herself. Think of how differently that would have went for her surviving family who found her and the rest of us if euthanasia was positively received. She could have said goodbye on better terms. I don't think she would have been so desperate. My mother was a huge animal person. We had dogs, cats, horses, cows, all manner of beasties, and she lavished the best possible care on all of them. But when their quality of life dropped off at the end, when there was nothing left for them but a life filled with pain and sickness, she'd have them put down. She'd hold them in her arms, tell them they'd been the best, whatever, and say goodbye. That's how I was taught to deal with pets, and that's how I've always done it. When my mother got brain cancer, a GBM, which is effectively incurable, and after treatment options had been exhausted, I got to watch her starve to death on a morphine drip for close to a month. And all I could think during that period, is how enraged she would have been if someone had done that to an animal. So yeah, euthanasia, 100%. Fuck this barbaric, gotta wait for you to suffer to death nonsense. What is the point? After watching my grandma trying to die peacefully, I took on a new stance on human euthanasia. All the meds that were supposed to help with pain just didn't work. Now this sounds awful, but I had to control myself from not grabbing a pillow to suffocate her. I just wanted it to end. I really loved my dog Alfredo, but there came a point where he was going to die, and the only question was how and when. Everyone, 2 vets in the whole family, agreed that the kindest thing to do was put him down. That either we could give him a good morning and then send him on his way to his next life, or we could watch him die slowly and painfully. It was a hard choice, but it was so easy for him. Literally, he was in my lap. He was snuggled and had all his favorite treats, and then he got a shot and his heart stopped 2 seconds later. It was so quick and so easy, physically. Obviously, it was very upsetting, but we made the right call. However, if I live to be old and I'm suffering, my family will have no choice but to watch me suffer for days or months on end. That isn't right. There should be a choice, something that we can do to make it quick. I hated seeing my dog die, but when it's my time, that's how I want to go out. 2 seconds, no fuss. My dad had a stroke 8 years ago. We've always been lower middle class and we couldn't afford to care for him as he was left extremely physically and mentally disabled. So into the system he went, bouncing back and forth between veterans' homes and private nursing facilities, around $7,000 per MO depending on the facility, constantly in and out of intensive care. He's lost most of his teeth, 100 pounds, his ability to do anything at all. Last time I visited him he laid silent for an hour just staring up. A week later he was in the ER with sepsis for easily the 40th time. It's incredible he makes it through that every time. The person my dad was died a long time ago. He's just constantly suffering and there is nothing anyone can do. He's been like this for a quarter of my life. It is absolutely the worst. I told my wife if I'm ever in similar state, just end it. It's a terrible choice to have to make, but it's the only humane answer in situations like this. I've watched several family members die in hospital beds. Everything from cancer to COPD to a car accident, massive brain trauma. Every time they were drugged. The myth is you die peacefully. That's a goddamn lie. You die barely conscious, gasping and fighting for every last breath because that's what the body is designed to do. If you last more than a day, you waste away covered in your own filth. Sometimes you have enough awareness to call for your mom. Other times the cancer has done so much damage to your brain you can only incoherently mumble. You are in pain as your body shuts down. Pain can be managed but not eliminated. It's a fucking hellacious experience not only for you but for your family. I hope no one ever had to experience this as an observer or the one dying. I am all for euthanasia. There are a lot of things that need to be worked out, but I'll be goddamned if there's the option if I'm going to die gasping for breath forcing my loved ones to clean up my shit and piss while I'm in pain. I'll be damned if a family member wants to but can't and has to suffer that experience. We give the decency to animals, why not humans? Why not let someone go when they are conscious and feel fine as opposed to making them suffer for 5 years with a terminal illness? Fuck that man. Not particularly against it, but I don't trust the medical or insurance establishment to help with those decisions or processes. I'll be very specific as to why. In the US, we tend to go overboard with everything. Plus, our approach to healthcare, our complex insurance industry, and our fixation on maximizing profits, combined with extremely high cost of medical care, makes euthanasia a touchy subject. Let's say you have a cancer patient, stage 3 liver cancer, so good prognosis with aggressive treatment, and the patient will have to fight. Now if you are an insurance company, would you rather cover the $120,000 treatment cost or have them end the fight for $25? Hell, my insurance company would start sending me daily reminders to kill myself if it meant another 0.00005% profitability. So I'm not against euthanasia in and of itself, I just don't trust our medical system to have that as a tool in its disposal. If someone is in pain and suffering from a chronic illness and that's their life now, there should be no question as to whether or not they should be allowed to end their life or not. Like, it's their life, they should have the choice and no one else. If they want to die right there and then, they shouldn't have to get permission, it should be automatic. In a way, it kind of pisses me off that those who are suffering can't end their own lives, and in some places it's on the family to decide for them. And of course some family don't opt for it and the person has to live whatever moments they have left in writhing agony, all thanks to the decision their family made for them. It's painful for the family to lose the family member, but remember, the family member that is in pain is also suffering and should be gracefully put down as per their request. There's nothing more selfish than keeping a person alive, not for their benefit but for your own. Visited my grandmother in her nursing home the other day. In the first minute of talking she told me, for at least the 5th time in a year, that she wants to die. Her Parkinson's is getting to the end stage. She can't do anything for herself, and she is a stubborn, independent lady, so it makes her angry. I hate it. I tell her if I could I would help her move on. Oh, and after working 5 months in a dementia care ward, I know 100% I do not want to be a fragment of who I used to be, just shuffling around with people paid to take care of basic needs. No way. So yes, euthanasia should be allowed. I hope by the time I'm closer to the end of my life I have a choice. My father and mother already told me that if things get bad for them to let them leave on their own terms, and I very much support that too.